Shalom Friends. Um, this is Michael Ezzo. I am back and I wanted to continue with my study of the Hebrew alphabet. So I will say that my study, I know I took a little long in making this video, but I'm pretty excited about what I've learned and I'm looking forward to share it with you. So we are on the letter Daled, which is our letter D. I did not write that down, but you know what a D looks like. It's pretty much what I want to put. So you can just imagine that in your mind. So I wanted to talk to you about the letter D, Dalet. This is what you would read in most books in Hebrew. And this is what you would write. This is how you write Dalet. This is actually cursive. This is print. This is cursive. But you read this, you write that. Book prints. That's what they call it, book prints. Now, in the Gematria, this represents the number 4, which is because it's the 4th letter in the alphabet. Now, it symbolizes a door, a way, and also a gate. And when I say way, I mean kind of like a path of life, like a way of life, a path of life. I'm sure that you can easily picture that in your mind. Now, before we talk more about the symbolism, I wanted to introduce a concept of Jewish understanding that a lot of people probably don't know, and that is the paldes. Now, just for clarification, the R is pronounced like the French R. Hebrew R, French R, they're the same, back of the throat. That's beside the point. So, paldes is, well, here's paldes in Hebrew, reading this way, paldes. Paldes. Paldes is a Jewish rabbinical study of Torah, and it's an acronym for four words. Now, we're only focusing on the one, which is the Dalet, and that means drash. In our English understanding, it is teaching, application, exposition. Technically, I'd say that all goes hand in hand with each other. And I wanted to mostly just introduce that concept to you because I find it really interesting. That's one of the ways that they study Torah. They give a drash, which is kind of where we get our lectures, where we get our sermons and that kind of concept, just if you're wanting like a better, more understandable image of what that's like. Now, I want to discuss, actually I want to say this before I get into my thought, which is, I have a drash for you. Alright, in this drash, don't want to do that. It's not a bad idea. I'll leave that open. There. In this drash, I want to go back to the symbolism of these meanings here. Now, when I talk about the door, like who or what is represented in as a door in the Bible, and I feel like most of us can easily think of who that would be, because we would think of Jesus, Yeshua. But the thing is, he is also the way. I want to read that for you. I hope the sound is good because I don't know. I'm gonna find out eventually. No, wait, it is. Okay. Alright. Ignore my thoughts right now. But I wanted to look up John 14:6 for you, which is in here. Yes, John 14:6. John 14:6 says this. Yeshua said, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And then I'm going to read from John 10:9. John 10:9 reads, I am the gate. This is Yeshua speaking. I am the gate. If someone enters through me, he will be safe and will go in and out and find pasture. So those are kind of really interesting key points when it comes to the fact that he's our door. But I mean, these are concepts we understand. One thing I wanted to show you is ignore my little plant here. I know you really can't see it, but it's kind of there. Super cute. Anyways. So the word for door is dielet. And dielet means door, but I'm just going to spell out the Hebrew for you. This is what it looks like in Hebrew. Dielet. That's door. And the image that this creates for us is that it is the door that controls the covenant. When I read this, I couldn't help but think of this verse in Exodus. Just really makes a poignant, just very interesting thought. In Exodus 12, verse 7. Because Yeshua is our door. 12 verse 7 says, now this is back when the plagues were coming upon Egypt, and this was after all the plagues except the last one had been done. And now God is speaking to Moses and Aaron in the lands of Egypt. He says to Moses and Aaron that they are going to start the feast of Pesach, Passover. They are going to start that, and the way that he asked them to start it was by one of these directions. God said they, the Israelites, are to take some of the blood and smear it on the two sides, like this, two sides, and the top of the door frame at the entrance of the house in which they eat it being the lamb. Now, the most explanation I want to get into regarding this is that this looks like a door. Now, Jesus, we've already established, is our door. We have established that we are establishing now that this looks like a door. The most important thing to realize is that Yeshua is the door to our salvation. And the blood on the cross and the blood on the door frame, the cross represents the door, and this is Yeshua who is our door. I'm not fully finishing the concept in my brain, but I think you understand what I'm trying to say. So moving on from Dilit, I want to discuss, covenant. That was it. Dilit is the door of the covenant. So technically the cross is the door of the covenant. That's why Yeshua is our Dilit, because he died on a Dilit. Okay, so the next one is way, because he is the way, the truth, and the life. The word way is Dilech. And that equals, oh, that's a horrible D. Oh my gosh, my handwriting right now. I'm gonna write sideways, guys. Sorry. This is Dilech. This means way. Dilech. Dilech. Now, Dilech means what a generation covers. If you think about it, what a generation covers. And I'm just going to erase it. So if you want to pause it now, write down the word Dilech. Don't write this down. That's horrible looking. But this is Dilech. So the important thing to know is that derech is a way of life, what a generation covers. And I think it's interesting how revival is literally introduced and always spoken over a generation. God wants our lifestyle to be of revival, of a revival of Him, of love, of whatever, and all the things that He's called for us to be. Those are the things that a derech can be. It's not just a path in Hebrew or a way of life. It's a lifestyle, how a generation should lead and how a generation should teach the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. Jewish understanding just goes from generation to generation to generation. Literally a way of life. Okay. So from there, I want to actually jump. Okay, I don't know how to spell this word in Hebrew, but I'm going to jump to the word dalit, how that came, just the importance of the word dalit. So dalit came from the word dalah. Dalah in Hebrew means poor, impoverished, and poor, impoverished, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of how do I want to say this? A lot of us can be okay. So there's like reality of duality. That's what I'm trying to say. There's reality of duality. If you're spiritually poor, then your soul is not prospering, your mind is not prospering, your health is not prospering, your everything about you is not prospering. So you're spiritually poor, and that's causing your physical state to also kind of be physically poor. But if you're spiritually strong, then you're physically gonna be strong. But here's the thing, it does work that way, but it's also kind of like, oh, how do I say this? It's the mentality, the attitude. Because you can say that you're poor, but in reality, you're actually rich. You can, like, the one of the seven churches in the book of Revelation. You think you're poor, but in reality you are actually rich, and you think you're rich, but in reality you're really poor. I think when God was telling the churches, the seven churches, that He was saying, like, look, you're pretending that you're this, but spiritually I know you're not. So stop acting like you're not this. I hope that's a sufficient explanation. If not, let me know in the comments. I can do better because I'm kind of just impromptu video right now. Okay, so just to explain a little more on this, if you make more emphasis on your physical state, your spiritual state can be poor. Now, what do I mean by this? This kind of goes back to the mentality. Like, a lot of the people in the world, they're spiritually dead because they're chasing after the things of the world. So their spiritual state is poor, but they're making such an emphasis on their physical state. So their physical state is strong, but their spiritual state is really poor. So you don't want to let the pride of, and I'm going to reference back to the letter behind Dalit, which is Gimel, which, if you remember, that means benefits on the positive ends. On the negative end, it means pride. So you don't want to let the pride of Gimel overtake you, or you will be put in a poor physical state, as this Dalit is. Because this Dalit looks like it's a little hunched over. Looks like a person bent over in tribal Hebrew times. So if we listen to God's will for our lives, we'll be lifted up by His Gimel, the benefit He has for us. So this means that we are to practice humility in God. And when we do this, we make the choice to open ourselves to the hope of our dreams, not shutting the door and staying closed off to all He has for us. Practice means persistence. Matthew chapter 7, from 7 to 8, says, and this was just a verse that just kind of popped in my head. I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't not find a connection with this, which is Matthew 7, 7 to 8. Keep asking, Yeshua speaking. Keep asking and it will be given to you. Keep seeking and you will find. Keep knocking and the door will be opened to you. For everyone who keeps asking receives. He who keeps seeking finds. And to him who keeps knocking, the door will be opened. So my thought is this, is that Jesus came to live a life that we could not live. And his way of doing that embodies this Dalit. So I'm going to explain that for you. Yes, we were poor in spirit, but Yeshua humbled himself to the cross. The Gimel of him wanting to bless, of him wanting to benefit, chased our Dalit, those of us who would be humble. And he also modeled that Dalit. So even though we know we have nothing, he gave us everything. I want to go to Philippians 2, 7 to 8, because this better summarizes what I'm trying to say. Philippians chapter 2. I'm actually going to read from verse 6 to 11. I feel like this is the perfect personification of what Dalit is and how Yeshua came to us. So this is what it reads. Though he, Yeshua, was in the form of God, he did not regard equality with God something to be possessed by force. On the contrary, he emptied himself, as a Dalit would, in that he took the form of a slave by becoming like human beings are. And when he appeared as a human being, he humbled himself still more by becoming obedient even to death, death on a stake as a criminal. Therefore, God raised him, he acted as a Gimel, God raised him to the highest place and gave him the name above every name, that in honor of the name given Yeshua, every knee will bow in heaven, on earth, and under earth. And every tongue will acknowledge that Yeshua the Messiah is Adonai, to the glory of God the Father. And I had to connect this with Jacob 127, which reads something really important and actually puts us in a new word that I wanted to introduce. We talked about the law. Now we're going to talk about that. And that is introduced here in Jacob, which I feel like just kind of connects what Jesus did for us. So it says in Jacob, or the book of James, it's really the book of Jacob, the book of James, chapter 1, verse 27. It says, the religious observance that God the Father considers pure and faultless is this, to care for orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being contaminated by the world. You could say contaminated from the prides of this world, considering what we're talking about, the Gmail of this world, because that's the twisted Gmail, the bad Gmail. We want the good Gmail, God's prosperity in our lives. But this explains the word dat. Dot is the word religion. Now, even though when it comes to religion, a lot of people tend to cringe, say they don't want to be a part of that. And I have to admit, I have been one of those people. I read this verse for a reason, because this is God's definition of religion. He doesn't pertain it to even reaching out to God. He pertains it to helping those who have been put in a poor and impoverished state. Dot is the image of the door of the sign, which in a sense actually goes back to what we were talking about with the word door. The word door itself means the door that controls the covenant. So dot is the door of the sign, which is also the covenant. So what is the covenant? The covenant is keeping the original promise of taking care of people on this earth. Has nothing to do with trying to connect with God. It has everything to do with taking care of people, taking care of the hurting, taking care of the orphan, the widow, the homeless. And on top of that, avoiding the gmail of worldly lifestyle. You just embrace God's lifestyle. So on that thought of a different definition of religion, I want to discuss and move on to Matthew 25, because this is what our actions in this do for God. Going to Matthew chapter 25, and I'm reading from verse 34 to 40. Again, this is Yeshua speaking. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you whom my Father has blessed. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you from the founding of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you made me your guest. I needed clothes, and you provided them. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Then the people who have done what God wants will reply, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? Or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and make you our guest, or needing clothes and provide them? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?" The king will say to them, this is God the Father speaking, "Yes, I tell you that whenever you did these things for one of the least important of these brothers of mine, you did them for me." So when we help people in the name of Yeshua, this is the pure and undefiled religion that Papa wants. This is what he wants us to live out. Never has to do with trying to find God. It literally has to do with just taking care of people and avoid boosting your own pride on your own. And this puts God in place of our next Hebrew word, which is dain. Now, the word dain means judge. And God the Father, that's what I'm trying to say. God the Father is our dain. He is the image of a judge, because he is the one true judge. In Hebrew, he is Hadain Emet. Ha'emet. Dain Ha'emet. And the interesting thing is that the word judge itself means door to life. I didn't. There it is. Dain. Again, my handwriting is not good. but he is the door to life, and life more abundantly. Now, the most important thing to do with all this knowledge is to apply it to our lives. So what I want to do is kind of go back a little bit to the beginning of the Aleph bit real quick and bring you straight to where we are with Dalet, because I know it's been a while since we've talked about, I just want to kind of connect the videos that I've made before to now. So Abba, which is our Aleph, sent his son, which is Ben, by means of the Ruach HaKodesh, our Gimel, who makes appeal to the needy and poor to receive God's grace. So if you notice, Abba is our Aleph, Ben is Yeshua the son, who is Bet, and then Gimel is our Ruach HaKodesh. And I want to end this segment with one more verse from Revelation. In Revelation 3, chapter 20, it says, "Here, I'm standing at the door, knocking." Yeshua is knocking. "If someone hears my voice and opens the door, he will come into him and eat with him, and he will eat with me." Now, I find this interesting because I know I'm ending with this verse, but I find this interesting because those people say he's knocking on the door of our hearts. This is the verse that they're typically speaking of. If you haven't noticed, the word heart is not in this verse. I'm gonna let you know. Now, one last thing that I wanted to discuss before I sign off is this one interesting concept that unfortunately I had skipped. Oh, there's one. So, we talked about the words dalet, dilet, and dilech. And we know that those are familiar images, like Jesus is our door, Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. I'm going to take it a little deeper just with that right there really quick. So we know that Yud, oh, I need to spell this right. I need to spell this right. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. That looks like a noon. You're not going to look like a noon. Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Now, the important thing is that it's 4 letters that make up Yud, He, Vav, He, which are equivalent to the number 4 Dalet. Now, let's say I added Dalet to the middle of it. Guess what word I just made? Yehuda. Now, I'm going to read you something that I thought was very interesting when I was learning about this. Because all I did was put Dalet in the middle of Yud, He, Vav, He. And this person had this thought. They said Yeshua HaMashiach was the tribe of Judah. Interestingly, the name for the tribe of Yehuda, which is Judah, contains every letter of the sacred name, except for the letter Dalet, suggesting that the door to the Lord would come through Yehuda. And with that, I will let you go. I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I'm looking forward to our next one. For now, Shalom.